Yeah. Yeah. Holy smokes, guys. What a horrible football game.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time. Once again, I don't even know if I feel like doing the whole intro. I feel like doing this show, I can tell you that. I feel like doing this show. All right, this was so bad. So, I don't even, outside of Brandon Finney and Tatum Tuioti, what good things do you have to say about that football game? Yes, it is that time once again for a reaction episode of Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view. Post Oregon getting pantsed by Indiana on their home field for their first home loss under Dan Lanning since 2022. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. You know the drill. This episode brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Like Oregon's player, well, I don't know if Oregon's players sweat it every detail day. When you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda move and B move. Like Brandon Finney is the highlight. That's it. Brandon Finney or Tatum Tuioti are the only good things I have to say about anything that we just watched for the last however long that college football game was. Started at 3.5 hours. For the last 3.5 hours, Oregon went out there and played a crap brand of football compared to what we know they're capable of. And you know what? I defended them after people said, well, look, Penn State lost to UCLA. I don't know, UCLA might be good now with their new staff. Penn State lost to Northwestern today, at home, as a 3-touchdown favorite. Maybe that was the Super Bowl. Maybe that was the game of the year for both of those teams because it had so much hype and so much attention. And for Penn State, it broke them, and maybe Oregon peaked. I don't think so. I think that's an overreaction in the moment to just a horrible football game. Oregon loses. I don't think the final seconds have even ticked down. I started this before that because I know it's going to happen. 30-20. Oregon loses this game. Nothing was good. Nothing. I don't have good things to say about Dante Moore. I don't have a silver lining about the game that Will Stein called. I don't have nice things to say about Oregon's defense in this game outside of the start of the third quarter. I mean, I think the offense put them on the field too much. I think that's a completely fair criticism and point of defense to give to Oregon's defense in this game because it was tied at the half. It was 13-10 Indiana at the half. What did you need from Oregon's defense? Stops. What do they come out and get? 2 stops in a row. 2 3-and-outs in a row. And the offense was just anemic. I want to credit Indiana. I do not want to sit here and pretend like they're not a good team because they're a really good team. A really good football team. Oregon is also supposed to be a really good football team, and boy, they didn't look like it tonight. Nowhere near it. They were a shell of themselves in so many different areas. It was sloppy. It was ugly. It was penalty ridden. It was inconsistent. There was nothing that was consistently good throughout the game. From a team and coaching standpoint, nothing about the game was consistently good. I mean, they came out and Oregon got stuffed on a 4th and 1 early in this game. First time Jordan Davison got stopped. De'Aaron Hill was, I don't even know where in this game. He wasn't being used. Neither was Sadiq. I bet I'm not going to be able to read everybody's comments, but I bet a lot of them are going to be about Will Stein. And I think a lot of people in my position would say, you don't actually know football. You can't talk about the offense or can't do this. You know what you can criticize no matter what your level of football knowledge? 20 points at home off a bye, not good enough. Not good enough. This was an ugly, ugly football game. Oregon season is not over. This is a bump in the road. It's an ugly bump. It's a speed bump you ran at a speed so quickly that you might have gotten your tires out of alignment, you got to take it into the shop. Oregon's got to take this thing into the shop. There were so many things that came out and didn't get off to a hot start on offense. Indiana's defense looks good. I talked about it this week that that's a unit that really doesn't get enough love. And the Hoosiers defense, as much as the offense, I feel like won this football game. Indiana's just a complete team. Indiana's a complete football team. I think that much is very clear. But, Oregon's got all the pieces to be just as complete. I got asked this on a radio hit before the game. And someone asked me, where's Indiana better than Oregon? And I said, I don't think the gap is really big anywhere, but I can't think of a unit where Indiana has a decided advantage. I've got one now. That's linebacker. The linebacker play in this game, really poor. Really, really poor from everybody that was in that room. Just nothing was good. Nothing was consistently right. But everything else, this looked, I feel like against a less talented team than Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. It looked like that. Let's get to the staff and talk about how they got outcoached. Across the board. Oregon's game plan, they weren't ready. Kurt Cignetti is a really good football coach. He's one of the 5 best in the country, and he just walked into Oregon's house and kicked their butts all over the yard. Oregon was 3 of 13 on third down in this game. 3 of 13. Horrible. And was that a reflection of situational play calling? I don't think so. It was a reflection of the fact that Indiana's defense is good and well coached, and Oregon, for one reason or another, was putting themselves in 3rd and 9, 3rd and 13, 3rd and 7, like all the time. Indiana's linebackers were impact players. Oregon's linebackers, you were happy when they weren't a liability. And it's not like the Hoosiers had some gaudy offensive game. It's just they're a balanced team. They had answers. They had the ability to do a lot of different things well, and they did, to their credit. And, Fernando Mendoza goes for 215 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. But what I talked about coming into this game, I think I mentioned this over on Locked On College Football, was if Indiana's pulling the upset, it's going to come in the disparity of quarterback pressure, and it has to go both ways. It did. Dante Moore was sacked 6 times in this game. Embarrassing outcome there. Mendoza was sacked once and had a lot of time to throw. And it's not like there were a lot. Oregon's defense scored a touchdown in this game. Of course, Brandon Finney is a superstar. That's, again, he and Tatum Tuioti and Bear Alexander. Bear Alexander played well. Those are the only positives I got. Those are only are there other ones that I'm missing? I don't know what those would be. I really don't. If you said, Spencer, what other positive takeaways do you have? I don't know. Let's peruse the box. By the way, I'm recording this on a small table. Sorry if it shakes a little bit. I'll try to work on that. Let's see. Dante Moore, 21 of 33, 186 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks, 5.6 yards per attempt. Gross. Oregon ran the ball 30 times for 81 yards, 2.7 yards a carry. Yikes. Now, that factors in Dante Moore's sack yardage, which I think is dumb because those are not rushing attempts. So, let's see. Oregon actually had 21 carries for 108 yards. Whoops. Hold on. Doing some quick math. Yeah, that's over 5 yards a carry. Yeah, the running game, it was there, it wasn't there. The game just went finals. I'm recording this, by the way. Yeah, let me talk about the running game and Dante Moore as well. Gosh, I have so many thoughts, and none of them are positive. If you're coming here looking for the optimistic outlook and some hope of positivity and Oregon's still alive for the play, yeah, okay, Oregon still controls their own destiny to go to the playoff. Whoop-de-doo. They play like that again, this won't be the only time they lose this season. That was a bad, at home off a bye. That's bad. That's really, really bad. So, talk about the running game, the disconnect on offense, and then later I'll get to Dante Moore as well on the super duper fun reaction show. which is brought to you by our friends at DoorDash. Let's look at who the MVP is, not for Oregon, but of the game, and ask who delivered. Let's start with Curt Cignetti. He delivered for his team. Indiana was way more prepared for this game than Oregon was by a lot, and he won the big situations for the most part. Oregon was 2 of 3 on fourth down, not like they were terrible, but 3 of 13 on third down. Boy, you got to give credit to Indiana's defense coordinator, who was really, really good. And then Elijah Surratt. Elijah Surratt was really good. Did he push off in the final touchdown? 100%. 100%. Officiating is like the 10th thing on my mind. It was bad going both ways all game. And yeah, he pushed off. Guess what? Oregon would have lost the game anyway. They would have lost the game anyway. So those guys delivered for their teams. Oregon's guys could not deliver today. But DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season. You can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Oregon was favored, according to FanDuel, by 7.5 points. 7.5 points. Look, you take that for whatever it's worth. I thought Oregon would win and cover. I had so much confidence in this team after going on the road and winning that matchup at Penn State. And yeah, maybe Penn State is but I still think there's an element of that game broke Penn State's will to go out and compete and broke their internal desire, because it's still a really talented roster. And yet they lost to Northwestern at home. That Northwestern defense, we saw it a couple weeks ago. They got some guys. They do some things well. But right now, new customers can bet just $5 with FanDuel and get $300 in bonus bets. That's right, you pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Indiana plus 7.5 would have been an easy one. Hoosier fans get to celebrate at Autzen Stadium. That stinks. So, what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Check them out at FanDuel.com. By the way, I'm sure I'm getting texts at the moment from Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. Let's see. No, he's polite. Good game, sir. Hoosiers played their butts off and made plays. Oregon's still insanely talented. Every chance to win a title until we meet again. Despite our bickering on the Big Ten Squad Show, I do actually like Goins. I get along very well. That's why we can bicker at each other, because we're tight. Hold on. I need my second segment sip. I wish this second segment sip was of vodka, perhaps. But it's not. It's just water. So, the rushing numbers for Oregon look really bad. Oregon's, I don't know, the Jay Harris thing early in the game, I get what they're going for there. They probably just feel like Jay Harris is better in that Wildcat spot than Jordan Davison. All right, I don't have a huge problem with that. De'Aaron Hill carries the ball 3 times for -3 yards. Kenyon Sadiq had 0 catches in the first half. The mantra with Will Stein when he first showed up to Oregon was feed the studs. Well, where were the studs? Why were they disappearing? And again, you have to give some credit to Indiana's defense. They schematically had answers for everything Oregon wanted. But here's what's perplexing about this game, being such a bad offensive output for Oregon. Jordan Davison looked great. There's another positive. Hey, I found one. All right, found another positive. Jordan Davison looks awesome. Not just a short yardage merchant. Dude looks like the next Royce Freeman. 7.4 yards a carry. Noah Whittington, 5.4 yards a carry. Jaden Lamar, 5.7 yards a carry. Where in the world are the points when your running backs are all 5.4 yards a carry and above? I didn't really start, stressing that Oregon could seriously lose this game until later in the second half. Because in the first half, I thought, well, they're going to be able to keep moving the ball up and down the field. Look at the way they're running it. Where were the play-action shots? They got one deep shot off to Malik Benson earlier in the game. Looked like things were off and running, smooth sailing, and then they just got completely outcoached. That's what it looks like. When you have the ability to run the ball like that, but it feels like you couldn't when you wanted to or needed to, you're getting outcoached. You're getting out-schemed. There are a million different technical elements to dialing up a run game and countering a run game as well. And I think that gets overlooked and often in discussions gets simplified down to how the offensive line played. They stunk in this game, by the way. No other way to see it. They were horrible. Dante Moore was not good either. I'll talk about him in the third segment. This was his worst game as a Duck by far. By far. I mean, not even particular. I didn't even know what second place would be. Oregon State, I guess? I don't know. So I think for Oregon running the ball as well as they did it, and to have such little output to show for it, incredibly frustrating. And that does fall on Will Stein, the offensive coordinator. I didn't think that Tosh Lupoi had a great game. I didn't think Tosh Lupoi and the defense were a huge problem. You know, they didn't come up with the stops the way they did against Penn State, you know, last time out. It was kind of a similar script. Like, Indiana got that early touchdown. You're like, okay, that's a good drive. They made some plays, and Mendoza made a couple throws. But, you know, there was nothing about Indiana that was overly spectacular, incredible, explosive. You know, Mendoza was under 7 yards per attempt, held them to 3 yards a carry as a team and 111 yards on the ground. It's like the numbers don't look that bad, and then you look up and you go, well, why did Oregon give up 30 points? Well, part of it is that the offense just really wasn't helping them out. But, you know, again, I'd give the defense a C- grade. I give the offense a D- grade. And actually, no, I got to give the defense a C grade here. Because remember, they give up 30, didn't get a lot of help from the offense to keep them off the field, sustain some drives, and gave them some tough field position. But they also scored a touchdown. So Oregon's offense, having 3 backs over at 5.4 yards a carry or above. We're just going to call that 5.5 going forward. 5.5 yards a carry or more with 3 different backs, and the offense scores 13 points at home off a bye. Yikes, man. Yikes. There is no justifying that. There is no smooth talking it. Like, you got beat. As a staff, you got beat. This is just Ohio State all over again. You got 3 coaching matchups. Head coach versus head coach. In-game decision making and overall game planning. OC versus DC. DC versus OC. Tosh Lupoi. I hope you guys can still hear me. Hold on, I'm here. I promise I'm here. Hold on, I'm getting this back. Oh, gosh almighty. I really hope you guys can still hear me. Did it cut out? Let's see. Is it still? Yeah. I bumped my USB adapter, and so at the moment, might need to. This is why I hate going live. I feel like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Blast! This is why I hate flying. Yeah, because something goes wrong like this, and I've got a black screen right now for you, and goodness gracious, why are we not picking this up? It should be. All right, I guess we'll just go with the lower quality camera here. That's a quick adjustment. Okay, anyway, back to the offense here. Sorry about that. It's frustrating that it looked like the elements were there for Oregon to go out and succeed, and that they just could not, for the life of them, put drives together. And I mean, consistently, they were behind the chains so many times in this game. Another thing that was bad, Oregon, 7 penalties for 64 yards. 7 penalties. Autzen crowd did their job. Autzen crowd did their job, man. Or I mean, Indiana had, I don't even know how many false start penalties. It was a really, really great showing in that regard. I don't come away feeling like Oregon gave up 30 points. I definitely come away feeling like the offense only generated 13, but this doesn't feel like a game where Oregon scored a defensive touchdown, you know, where they played that well. Like, yeah, so I'll give the defense a C because they weren't good late, but they were, you know, for the most part effective, and I didn't feel like the reason why they overall lost the game. Offense, it's hard to not give this an F. I mean, they didn't score 0 points. They scored a touchdown early. Think about it. They scored a touchdown. When was that Malik Benson touchdown? The Malik Benson touchdown in The first quarter, 3-play, 51-yard drive. Oregon went with that lightning tempo, and with 5:15 to go in the first quarter. 5:15 to go in the first quarter. That's the last time the offense scored a touchdown. Yeah, I don't care who you're playing, man. So that's an F. The offense gets an F. They got punched in the mouth. They got beat. They got outcoached. There is just, simply put, no other way to see it right now, and it's frustrating. If you're an Oregon fan watching this or commenting or anything, and you're frustrated, yeah, you have 100% right to be. 100%. You should be frustrated because that was an embarrassing performance. At home, off a bye, college game day in town, primetime kickoff, and you go out and do that. Yikes. Oregon's definitely going to fall, obviously, from number 3 in the country to, I mean, they look like they should fall outside the top 10. I don't know if they will because you lose to the top 10 team. We'll see. That doesn't matter. Well, actually, I don't agree with that. I take that back. I'm going to pretend I never said that. It does matter because Oregon is now in a position from a playoff standpoint to where they're going to potentially be fighting for an at-large playoff bid. So the perception of this team does matter. It matters a whole heck of a lot, as a matter of fact. It could come down because Penn State is just cratering and doing nothing for Oregon's resume. There aren't that many opportunities for quality wins going forward. And Oregon's got to, of course, win those games first. But, let's say they wind up at 10-2. Let's say they lose. Let's say they stumble at Iowa. They've got Rutgers and Wisconsin up next. Boy, those games better not be problems. Let's say they stumble at Iowa, then beat Minnesota, USC, Washington. None of those teams are ranked right now. So Oregon would be sitting there 10-2 without a ranked win and a home loss by double digits to a ranked team. Yeah, that's go 11-1. It's a whole heck of a lot safer. But does it feel like this team go 11-1 right now? No, it doesn't. After Penn State, I got questions about whether Oregon would go 12-0. I said it's hard not picking to do that, but just because you're favored doesn't mean you're going to win the football game. Oregon was favored in this one. They should have won. They didn't, and they just made too many mistakes. Speaking of mistakes, Dante Moore, his worst game as a Duck. First, this episode brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward for those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. Of course, I'm going to shout out Indiana here. How could I not? What am I going to shout out with Oregon? Brandon Finney? I suppose. All right, we'll go with Brandon Finney. Brandon Finney's pick 6, the first interception of his career, that tied the game at 20 and put the onus on the defense to go get another stop, and they couldn't. They give up the touchdown. Yeah, it was a push-off, 100%. Officials are bad. Don't let it come down to that margin. That's my answer to that. Because I 100%, like, Ife Obadegwu was in perfect position on Surratt. He pushes off right in front of the official, and there's no call. It is one of my biggest grievances about the NFL and college football officiating. They don't call offensive pass interference, and receivers can get away with that stuff. But you can't let it come down to that particular margin. Still, Brandon Finney was moving Oregon's defense forward. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected, only the beginning, and just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Like Oregon's offensive line was moved around. Yeah, tough day. Okay, this is the worst game Dante Moore has played as an Oregon Duck. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the offensive line was good. But one thing that I've talked about all season long with how this offense has looked, 6 sacks. 6 sacks. Been sacked one time in the previous 5 games. 6 sacks for Indiana's defense here. And in the past, I have noted, hey, this is partially on how well the offensive line is playing. No doubt about it. This is also a function of Dante Moore getting the ball out on time. Okay, Indiana, I need to shout out their defensive coordinator here, and I don't know his name off the top of my head. Indiana's defensive coordinator. His name is Bryant Haynes, it appears. Okay, Bryant Haynes. He is really good as DC. I mean, he had Dante Moore. Go back to the Sam Darnold line. He had Dante Moore seeing ghosts. The protections were not picking guys. And by the way, there were some bad protection moments. It's not all on Dante Moore, 100%. Noah Whittington had a whiff of a blitz pickup on a third down in the first half that allows a pressure right up the middle. But the simulated pressures, one of the biggest differences in this game. Indiana picked up Oregon's blitzes over and over again, and Oregon didn't pick up Indiana's over and over and over again. And some of that falls on Dante Moore. He was not making good reads. He missed open receivers. He made bad throws. His stat line being 21 of 34. What is that completion percentage-wise? That's 62%. I'm surprised it's even that high. It felt a whole heck of a lot worse. A whole heck of a lot worse. The number of open throws or just uncompetitive throws, one that pops into my head was a third down before Oregon kicked a field goal to tie the game at 13. Indiana brings cover zero pressure. And Dante Moore sees it and recognizes I have to get this ball out quickly, and DeCorian Moore's running a slot fade. That's a good read. You take that. And Dante Moore throws a wildly uncompetitive football. And he tried to throw some fade routes and one-on-one opportunities, and they didn't give anyone a chance. Not the defender even, let alone Oregon's receiving core. It was really bad. It was really bad. It does not mean that he is a bad football player, that this is what he's always going to be. As bad as this feels in the moment, and I'm right there with you guys, just like the good play Oregon has had doesn't automatically extend to the rest of the year, let's see how Oregon comes back from it next week. Because they go on the road at Rutgers, who had Washington in a tight game at the half, and then the Huskies pulled away. Oregon better be ticked off. Oregon better have a chip on their shoulder. And that chip better be, hey, no one's talking about us now. Not in a positive light, anyway. Dante Moore Heisman train, off the tracks. It has pulled into the station. It is resting. There's nothing about this game really to feel good about with Dante Moore in the offense. It's a bad game. Really, really bad. Great teams can have bad games. What you can't have happen is allow the spiral that has transpired in Happy Valley. That's what Oregon is now trying to avoid. Don't let the 5-0 start with a win at second-ranked Penn State become a distant memory. Right now, it feels that way. But it's still kind of in your rearview mirror. It hasn't moved out of the picture yet. You don't want to get to the point where that feels like something that needs to be noted in a history book. Because, Oregon's season just completely flipped around once Indiana came and punched them in the mouth on the home field. You got punched. You're going to punch back? Or are you going to go cower in the corner? Those are kind of your only two options. I tend to think it's going to be the first one. But, for Dante Moore, man, he's got to play better. It was just, I think the rain obviously played a factor a bit. And, Mendoza outplayed him. There's no doubt about that. But, the interception late, he's just trying to get a 5-yard hitch. He just never sees the linebacker running over. The other interception, pressure in his face on the RPO, I don't think it was a bad read. At least I didn't think it was in real time. And, the guy gets the deflection and it's picked off. And it was just all disappointing. Because Oregon had a chance on their home field with their Heisman betting favorite quarterback to go down and tie the football game. And we saw 2 plays that netted 0 yards and an interception. Pretty brutal. Pretty brutal. So there's not just one guy. I talk about Dante Moore because he's quarterback, and it's fair to point out he played really poorly in this football game. Really, really poorly. He wasn't the only one. Offensive line didn't play particularly well. Coaching staff didn't have a very good day. Bunch of sloppy mistakes here and there. The momentum killer that was the end of the first half. Gosh almighty. Okay, let me touch on that for a moment to wrap this up. Sappington missing from 36 there, unacceptably bad. the defense to then allow Indiana to waltz down I think Indiana was kind of trying to run out the clock. That calling a run play there after they'd let the clock run down already was Indiana going, well, if we get some yards, sure, but we're fine going to the half 10-10. And they gave up 12 yards, and they gave up a completion. Then they committed a penalty, and then Indiana drills a 58-yard field goal. That was brutal. But Oregon had snatched the momentum back with a 3-and-out to start the second half, and then the offense just couldn't respond. They just couldn't respond. They had no answers all day. So that part stunk. The whole game stunk, frankly. So I'm going to stop talking about this game for now. Obviously, there'll be more thoughts on my Monday show, but yeah, I'm not going to have very many positive things to say there either. I mean, Jordan Davison, Brandon Fitty, Tatum Tuioti, Bear Alexander. Those are the only guys I have good things to say about. Those are the only guys that look like they were locked in and ready to play. Everybody else, Iffy was come and go. I thought Iffy was mostly good in the game. He's much better than Theron Johnson. I want to see Iffy and Finney as the two corners, and I don't want to see anybody else on the outside, frankly. So, yeah, those four guys look like they were locked in, ready to go. Amari Washington had a pretty good game. Just about everybody else, man. Jaden Kennedy, he was a bright spot. He got flagged for a crap pass interference call. Yeah, that's about just, handful of guys. Handful. I'll save that for my individual standout segment. So keep dropping your comments. Talk to you later. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.